The moral and mental collapse of the Vanderlyn gang has always been an interesting subject to tackle. It's one of those things people feel they can pinpoint, the exact moment everything truly began. Not unlike how so many of us, myself included, tried to identify when Arthur's cough first appears, when it worsens, and how that progression affects him within the broader timeline of the game's events. Today though, we're not going to focus on when something happens. Instead, we're going to be focusing on why. Because when you put certain moments under a microscope, the things Dutch says, the way he behaves, a darker intention begins to creep through. That is questionable at best, but damning at worst. These are actions clearly rooted in desperate justification in the hope that those around him will accept his explanations at face value. That hope is sustained by the gang's continued need for faith and loyalty within their leader, a man who, time and again, has delivered them not to salvation but further into ruin. Yesterday we examined why the Saint Denis Bank was doomed from the start, how the gang's inflated sense of capability blinded them to the true depth of the obstacles they were facing, dangerous on their own, deadly when compounded. Now the focus is going to shift inward, to how Dutch processed that failure, because when a plan appears flawless, when every variable seems accounted for, collapse doesn't feel like a consequence, it feels like utter betrayal. And in Dutch's mind, the only way it could have fallen apart the way that it did was if someone had turned on him.
But, when did you become so small-minded? This isn't a prison camp. I am not forcing anybody to stay. You are talking like John.
It's no surprise that in Dutch's mind, the failure of the Saint Denis Bank fell on John, or at the least, he was punished for it by a lack of speed in breaking him out of the Cynic penitentiary. If we go back to this conversation Dutch has with Arthur in the cave in Guarma as they're being led by Gloria, Dutch shares just how seriously he entertained the idea that the robbery was a setup, or just as plausibly, how useful that idea was to him.
So what happened with John in that bank?
He survived. Unlike dear Hosea and Lenny. The only one they took alive. Why is that, you think?
I don't know. I was already on the roof. I didn't see it.
And Abigail, I presume she was able to slip away in time.
What are you talking about?
You know, when I look back at all the chaos of the past few weeks, the apparent superficial chaos, I begin to wonder, maybe, for somebody, this is all going exactly to plan.
Still ain't sure what you're saying, Dutch.
Nor am I, quite, but that many Pinkertons arriving like clockwork once again? That must have taken days to organize. Maybe there's a maggot in the apple. Sometimes I don't know quite who to trust anymore.
You must be real tired, Dutch. I know I am.
Arthur initially downplays it, chalking Dutch's words up to exhaustion. They've been through a lot, and they still are in the middle of it, actively trying to rescue Javier. In that context, it's easier to Arthur to rationalize what Dutch is saying as a result of stress, fragmentation, and the need to make sense of something monumental while everything around them is still continuing to fall apart. Even Dutch seems to give himself that way out. He admits he doesn't quite understand what he's saying, which conveniently leaves him room to retreat from the implication of needed. But what matters is what he says while allowing himself that ambiguity. There's a maggot in the apple. The chaos they suffered, he claims, is superficial, all manufactured and generated. It's not systemic, it's not structural. Hell, it's not even directly consequential to their own actions. It's all thanks to a traitor. In this framing, the seeds already sown by Dutch, potentially made worse by Micah, could explain the underlying feelings Dutch has towards his former son and his wife. When they do eventually return from Guarma, as he says, the Pinkertons would have needed days to set up the ambush they pulled off, an attack during which Bill claims is even worse than Blackwater. And Bill was there for the worst of Blackwater's shootout, with that whole job carrying the same prevailing belief that it had happened because it too was a setup. And here Dutch leans into that pattern yet again. He narrows his suspicion towards Abigail or John, hinging it on convenience. John being the only one taken alive instead of being killed outright. Abigail somehow managing to escape. Circumstances that can be read as coincidence, or even a little lucky, or reframed as betrayal if you're already looking for it. And for Dutch, this isn't just paranoia, it's repeatable logic within plausible deniability built in. A way to isolate one or two people Dutch, I believe, already viewed as problems, of which it's not because they betrayed the gang, but because in his mind they betrayed the dream. They question him. They complicate unity. They resist blind faith. And and this can be heard directly from Dutch's own words during the mission Country Pursuits. This mission gives us the clearest convergence of external pressure and internal fracture is filtered through Dutch's own thinking. Not through the world closing in on him, or the result of his or the gang's broader actions, but the way he interprets things happening to him, and the obstacles he's identifying to the better life he's claiming so hard to achieve for everybody else. In hindsight, the beginning of this mission is the only time I can immediately recall Dutch receiving any sort of pushback on a plan or sense of overall direction, at least within any major cutscene blatantly put in our face. The killing of Angelo Bronte for Hosea was more revenge than a prerequisite to hit the bank. Apart from that, the trolley job and Dutch's faith in the ferryboat poker game were all confident moves supported rather than opposed, and even then, Hosea doesn't doubt Dutch directly, more so places his own view of attacking Bronte being a direct move of revenge and pointless killing ultimately not being worth it. Quite an interesting take as it was from the man running the reconnaissance and surveillance on the job Dutch claimed killing Bronte would, in essence, protect. Hosea was simply providing a fair observation. However, when riding to meet with Thomas in preparation for assaulting Bronte's home, Arthur continues Hosea's line of questioning. Again, it's not doubting, it's real framing of what they're all facing. Arthur even says they feel they have a lot of pots on the boil, given everyone gunning for them. The Driscolls found them and time is not quite on their side. Dutch in response throws everything he can at Arthur. He first and foremost mocks him, calls him simple-minded, and throws out everyone appears to have forgotten what it takes to support 20 people, never mind 20 people planning to start up new lives in a brand new country.
I know, but
when did you become so small-minded? You all seem to have forgotten how money is made and what it takes to support 20 people. Let alone what it takes to give 20 people a new life overseas.
They are either all in this together or not at all. He's sick of being doubted and questioned while bending over backwards to secure the future and means to support all of them. This isn't a prison camp. They can all leave if they want. He's not keeping anybody here. When Arthur meets this with one final response of trying to plead with Dutch's logical side, Dutch responds accordingly.
I feel like I'm going in circles with all of you. Micah is the only one left with any loyalty.
now, that ain't fair.
You are talking like John. I swear that woman is poisoning him against me. I've seen it before.
You're sounding like John. I swear that woman is poisoning him against me. I've seen it before. Dutch yet again misinterprets genuine causes for concern with betrayal. To Dutch's credit, technically he is right in identifying John has changed, but he fails to understand the real reason as to why. Jack's kidnapping was what changed John's feelings towards the gang's leadership and decision-making, a mindset that wasn't exclusive to Dutch. He even shares with Arthur Hosea had his own hands in that.
Smart? Are you joking? We made too much noise once again. We drew them right to us. I mean, how many people we killed in the past few weeks?
Far too many.
It's Dutch playing his games. Hosea, too. Getting involved with those two families. Master con men working their magic.
They thought there was a lot of gold.
Yeah, they thought there was money. Ain't there always?
At the time, Arthur understood it for what it was, a mixture of regret and guilt. John's life and his decisions led to his son, who he passionately rejected, being taken as a prisoner. It forced him to begin to take his life and decision-making much seriously, to take Abigail seriously, to vow to himself to do better for his own personal family. And you can see him start making those changes as soon as Jack is back, asking Abigail if it's okay with her for her and Jack to sleep in his room.
So, I was thinking, maybe it would be a little easier for me to keep an eye on him if we all stayed together. You know, in my room.
You mean like a normal family?
Look around you. Ain't nothing normal about any of this.
Abigail and John begin to search for a better life for themselves and their son, yet they're far from really gaining permission to leave. I mean, it takes Arthur and Beaver Hollow to finally tell John to do the right thing, to take his woman and his child and focus on what's best for them as a family. It's not just John being unsure, it's learning what loyalty and faith truly means and who that should belong to, and ultimately what it looks like. Clemens points to Shady Belle that begins with his family, and he attempts to do what's best for them within the parameters of Dutch's gang and way of thinking. Is that really a bad thing? Is it bad to put that on Dutch and the gang's leadership rather than go off and do it to yourself? No. Yes. When you've been taught your entire life that loyalty means everything and that's who you're raised up as, and it was the lack of commitment that led to your son being kidnapped and all of your failures coming back to haunt you, it's a difficult decision to make. But while he and Abigail get closer, Dutch and John get further away. Dutch sees John as being poisoned when, in the aftermath of Bronte's drowning, John then questions Dutch's sense of morality, to which Dutch could have possibly gave an ominous yet fair warning.
Jesus. Part of your philosophy books cover feeding a fella. The goddamn alligator, Dutch.
Part that covers weakness.
It doesn't stop here, though. While riding out to hit the bank, Dutch claims this is the last time, and they'll be ready to secure passage to a new life soon. John, in front of everybody, attacks the idea, sharing he's heard that before and none of this feels real. He continues to question Dutch's leadership, and if this was the right move or if this is actually going to be the big job that Dutch yet again claims is going to set them along their way. Annoyances, open disrespect, continued dissidence in front of everybody, all could have easily been perceived as perhaps real resistance to what was understood to be genuine progress, or a symbolism of the reality of the situation that Dutch continues to face. The pattern of these two continue to be at odds all the way through the actual robbery, with John's own words in the bank solidifying Dutch's mental isolation of his son and what Arthur originally claimed was Dutch's favorite.
Come out! It's over!
Shit! Abigail!
Dutch! Get out here! Get out here now!
Someone must have squealed!
Never should have gone after Bronte, Dutch.
Mr. Milton? Let my friend go!
As Milton is outside demanding Dutch come outside to show himself, the job is over, they've been busted, and Hosea is at gunpoint. The first two things John says is they have Abigail, followed by chastising Dutch, that he should have never went after Bronte. For someone already mentally separating themselves and seeing John as being poisoned, within the context of having to acknowledge they've been found, Milton as their most valuable member on a job they believed was foolproof thanks to the numerous tests and distractions ran, to at the same time hear the person you're already suspicious or at odds with now feels like a stab in the back, or at the very least a slap in the face. John throwing in the mistake of killing Bronte while having some truth behind it, at this point in time was a major miscalculation on John's part. That would later feed into the idea of there in fact being a rat here, which Dutch immediately identifies, later pointing to the coincidence of John's arrest and Abigail's possible escape. I'd also like to point out that during the rest of the fighting within the bank, John's dissatisfaction with Dutch continues, with him even openly shouting he doesn't want to hear right now how Dutch is working on how they're going to hold the police force back. His faith at this point is utterly destroyed, loudly to Dutch and everybody else within this building, and to his mentor. That faith, that loyalty is never fully restored. John already picked his side.
Arthur! We lost John.
Killed?
Arrested. I couldn't help. At least we got some money now. Money and loyalty. With that...
So now Dutch has a suspicion and a motive to get rid of his former favorite. Well, we can point to the moment he arrives on the top of the roof to tell Arthur he, quote-unquote, did everything he could to keep John from getting arrested.
We lost John.
Killed?
Arrested. I couldn't help.
Well, we better go. We'll be next.
A move that feels as if he was half expecting to be met with criticism for a questionable lack of trying, appearing to be more suspicious than anything, sort of feeling like a mirror to what he does to Arthur later at the oil refinery. But instead I want to move forward a bit to the boat the Vanderlyn gang stows away on while escaping the police. Now, reassessing the situation they are in is objectively very, very bad. Hosea was killed, Lenny was killed, Charles potentially sacrificed himself to lure the police away, John was arrested, Abigail is presumed to have escaped, while the remaining gang members back at Shady Belle are effectively leaderless, with a high possibility that they had no idea what happened during the Saint Denis Bank Robbery and that Milton and the Pinkertons are finally on all of their trail. So, all things considered, it's extremely bad, but I can't help but notice Dutch's choice of words on what to do next.
What are we gonna do in Cuba, Dutch?
Hold up for a while, then hurry back, gather up the rest of our family. At least we got some money now. Money and loyalty. With that, you can do whatever you please.
Why mention money and loyalty? What does loyalty really have to do here at this point in time? No one is confronting or opposing, simply asking what their next move is. This is why I said earlier the people in Guarma and Dutch's mind are the most loyal to him. He's in good spirits. Rightfully so, they have the money and did manage to escape. The thing here I want to emphasize is I'm not attempting to imply he planned on leaving the gang, more so saying from the perspective of John and how it falls in line with Dutch's later implication of him being the rat and buying into the idea that hence it would be okay to leave him behind. There are these small trails from suspicion, resistance, giving Dutch a motive and a reason, an opportunity to get rid of him by allowing him to get arrested in the Saint Denis Bank, and then if in the case of, say, Arthur for instance, someone saw, frame it as, I did my best, I was overrun. There was simply nothing I can do. To then transition to, while on the boat, these are my core four, these are my most loyal gunmen. We have money, I have my loyalty, my peace of mind, my back is secured. We just need a little bit of extra time. Isolating these moments and choice of words feels as if it's the familiar song and dance. Money, loyalty, a little bit of time. Recentering themselves now on returning home and gathering the remaining members left behind. However, identifying the pattern, it feels more as if it was an opportunity taken with an attempt at seeing how far the rat narrative would stick on John. The only thing that's still quite interesting is if Dutch genuinely believed John or Abigail were to blame for the bank's failure, because that would mean the deaths suffered during that job would be on their hands, or whoever else snitched on them. Thus demand a more emotional response from Dutch, which he's proven time and again to be also capable of, yet within the cave and placing this narrative on John, it seems to be more him half-heartedly testing out a narrative and a lukewarm train of thought, rather than a full-blown commitment in saying, hey, they're the ones responsible. The rat narrative itself is an interesting thing because even Arthur threw out how this was a setup and they knew they were coming, just like in Blackwater, another one of Micah's mistakes, which falls a little bit more back into the theory of Micah yet again being a rat thanks to his choice in outfit here. How he decided to choose white in the hail of bullets so that way Milton and all the other Pinkertons would identify him and thus not target him. Dutch has also proven to say and do things designed to hold his own fragile self-image intact and guard how others perceive him. Killings and other deplorable acts are framed within a justifiable reason. It's us versus them. It's ugly, but I had no choice, and I chose us. It's that moral sense of rationally explaining such horrible acts that resulted in him failing Bronte's test of killing for him. It does eventually fall apart, but right now, it slips occasionally, but it's still there, and it's still important to him. With the lack of Dutch's eagerness to free John from Cynic Penitentiary, not mention him ever in returning to the rest of the gang members, certainly not in the capacity of freeing him, let alone mentioning again that he was arrested, the desire to have him back was long gone. The wish to have him killed, however, harder to fully confirm. Not impossible, you'd be incredibly naive and horribly wrong by saying he would never expect that, given the crimes they would have all been tried for. That was the inevitable. But with no concrete evidence, no security, and knowing even Arthur would buy into John's guilt, the best he could do was continue to bide for time. Had it not been for Sadie and Arthur deciding to act on their own, it would have been interesting to see if Dutch still had that ability, charisma, and charm to explain the unfortunate death of John, knowing they had an opportunity to rescue him.